When you're ready to start, and we go. Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to the meeting of the Dorset Lab. We will start with agenda item number 1, which is welcome apologies and declarations of interest. So if you do have any personal interest in any item, please do declare it at the appropriate time. And Gemma, do we have any apologies this morning?
Yeah, we've got a few. So we've got apologies from Maddie.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul,
are you going to introduce our councillor members? Well, I think it's changed since our last meeting.
Right, okay. Well, you're a regular face.
Yes, I'm a regular face indeed. I'm Simon Christopher. I'm the Dorset councillor for the delightful Marshwood Vale, which includes the Golden Camp Stonebow estate, which is described as the jewel in the crown of the National Trust. My ward extends all the way from Seatown to Seaborough. So Simon Christopher, Dorset councillor, Marshwood Vale.
You're a familiar face to us, so have you changed responsibility? Or?
And I think they were waiting on the elections to confirm something. And similarly, BCP were in a state of flux.
Right.
So I don't know if we're...
I can try and answer that. I'm Andy Brown, travel team leader of BCP Council, with responsibility for rights of way. We did have election in May, and there has been a change of political dimension at BCP Council. And I had a chat with the portfolio lead that will be responsible for rights of way and sort of countryside in BCP, and that's Andy Hadley, Councillor Andy Hadley. And I had a chat with him yesterday in the office. I saw him there and said I was attending today, and he said if he could please be invited to future meetings. And I passed the email address to Gemma. And so yes, and he said if he could be please invited to future meetings. He's watched the recordings of the last couple of meetings, so he's getting back into it. So yes, and he would love to be invited. So yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. Thank you.
Andy was a member about 2 years ago when he was in opposition.
That's right.
He was very helpful. So he's house trained, as it were.
Right.
He was a member at Poole Borough Council, wasn't he? So yes, and he's looking forward to getting involved again.
Right. Okay, that's great. So we will move on to item number 2, the minutes of the last meeting, actions and matters arising. I haven't gotten the minutes. Here we go. Does anybody have any notes on the meetings from our last meeting on the 6th of April? Got a very large set of minutes in front of me. So if there are no comments on the minutes, I'll move from the chair that we accept them as a true record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Right, so we will confirm those as a true record. Item number 3. The Dorset Council Green Space Management and Maintenance report. Russell, if you'd like to give your report, please.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into the presentation and guide through the public facing side of our Seaside and Dorset Explorer reporting systems, so that people have a better idea or an idea of how to use the facilities we have. I know I'll have to go through a couple of bits and pieces. As I was going through it yesterday, there's been a couple of updates to our Explorer system, and it's removed some of the functionality and changed some of it. So it's a work in progress, but I'll show you where we go. So if I just share my screen, come on. Go through it. There we go. So I was going to do a presentation, but actually it didn't actually work so well as a presentation. I was grabbing lots of screenshots off of the system. I thought actually it's better just to jump straight on the live system and go through it. So for the public wishing to log rights of way issues on Dorset Explorer on Seaside for our rangers to look at, they can go to the Dorset Council homepage, scroll down through to countryside, coast and parks. Then we've got rights of way. First option. This gives rights of way page where people who wish to report problems can via the report problem or track. We've got definitive lifestyle, we've got that's the Dorset local access form page, volunteering, a bit about the rights of way and other sections, including how we prioritise rights of way, which rights of way issues which I've popped up there. So if we take a look at what comes through, first of all, so people wishing to report them. So apologies if you've seen this or used this before, but it's actually useful for those that haven't in order to streamline how requests for service come through to us. So we get the reporter problem-ish section now. We've had a lot of work on this. We've had a lot of public feedback to make this system as usable as it can be for the public. So they can, if you already know an M&T, which we'll come on to in a minute, you can log it, that you can find out any updates from here. But for general members of the public wanting to report a problem on a right of way, they come to this page and they can either jump straight onto the interactive map, which is located on that function there. You can search for a village postcode, or because a lot of people are saying, I actually want to log this problem whilst I'm stood next to the problem. We also added this, which is my current location tool as well, which uses the mobile phone's GPS system to locate the issue, which is beneficial for us because it logs the issue in exactly the right place and beneficial for the user as well. So I'm not going to jump straight onto that one now. I'm going to jump onto the map and log something in West Patch. So this is what it gets. This is what the public see is a map of, these are all the rights of way within Dorset, scaled up, zoom in at any level. So just for the sake of this one, I'm just going to zoom into West Bexington and we're going to suggest we've got an issue here. We do, click on the map, it says report issue here, straightforward, problem details. I'm just going to write DLAP in there so that when we do our statistics, we don't count this as a job received and then a job resolved. Another problem we have with the system, again using functionality asked for by members of the public, was this report anonymously tool. Previous systems required the person who logged the complaint to register their name, address, email address, etc. From an audit side of things, that was brilliant because we knew where it's come from, but people were concerned that their details were then on the system, and especially if they were logging something within their area that might be seen as being contentious. They didn't want it. They didn't want to have their name associated. So what we were getting actually is people weren't reporting issues because they were wrongly worried that the data would be used, potentially seen by others. But so now we have the report anonymously function, which can go there, or people put in their name, details, email address, phone numbers. These are very handy, especially if it's been reported somewhere we need more information. But for this one, I'm just going to report anonymously. And you know the landowner's details, that is useful, but we also do our own checks for this one as well, just to be sure. And then there's a facility there to upload pictures. As I say, a picture says 1,000 words, so that's a very handy in videos as well. So then we come down to submit the problem. Then it says thank you, and it's gone off, and that will now go and sit within the areas. We have 5 areas, and that will go and sit within the West and Coast inbox. And that will go. The The benefit of doing this rather than emailing officers directly is that this will go to not only my entire team in West, but also anyone within Countryside Service can access this. And then, so for instance, next week we've got someone on leave, someone's ill, an important issue isn't lost, it's still taken up. What you can also do with this is you can track the progress of the report you've done through, which is again another user functionality which was asked for by members of the public. So they were saying it was a bit clunky in the way that they had to go through the system to find out, or to get all of the officers to find out how the report was being processed. So you can hit the track process on this one, and then it says subscribe to receive email updates. So if you put your email address into this box here, any updates that are publicly available will come through to you as an email. If we go and find this job now that's just been created, so I'll just drop back here. So we've got MNT, which is maintenance code 60978. It's received in the admin area of Panama. That's for DLAB. I'll just jump onto our other live system now. So this is actually my login for what we see. We see very few this. I can't go into too much of the functionality of this because there is other data that we can't show, but just find this job. So this job here, there it is, test for DLAB. You can see we've got another couple of jobs in there, overgrown bridle path, ground vegetation, weeds, brambles, extend. So this is where it goes. I will just open this job here. So this is what we see when it comes through from members of the public. So if there was any pictures added there, they'd be seen in here. And as you can see, come down through any of the details added, grid references, there's a map there so we know exactly where it is. The landowner details will be populated there. The reported by will be populated there. Any comments that we want to add can be put in here. So we add the comments. Any comments added in that box are sent through to the email inbox of the person who has subscribed. And it doesn't have to be the person that logged the job that can subscribe. It can be anybody and as numerous people as you want. Log into this and have a look. And what we generally do is we'll edit and we go through our priority list, high, medium and low. I'll talk about those in a minute, about what they actually mean. And then we've got the received under investigation waiting works, and this is just how we move our jobs around and then prioritize the work to be done. Once any of those changes are done, so I'll get resolved, test complete, and the date has to go in there. Again, one of the user functionalities from members of the public was when some of the jobs in the past could just be signed off without the officer putting any information in to let the public know what's been resolved or what's happened or what's been done. So my team or any of the teams cannot resolve a job until they put something in the work done box so that people can see what has been done and what the officers said and what the officers then save job. Now that one's been cleared off the system.
Does it show something is going to enforcement? From it?
Only the level of that detail will be put in by the officer who puts it in. So if we go back to this job, so they have to, that actually be a text function. So it wouldn't, it also depends on whether or not it's a confidential element of the information as to the enforcement process. So we can, if it is going to cropping, for instance, we were going to go down the way, say, yeah, we can send for enforcement, we could log certain aspects of the job, but there's also a confidentiality function in there as well, whereby the officer can put notes within the job and hit a box that says keep anonymous. I'm sorry, not keep anonymous. It is, what is the wording on it? Go back to Western Coast. No, there is actually a maintenance comment in there, so I can't show you now. So it just says keep confidential effectively anyway. So there is job elements within the job that can be kept confidential, so that it's an audit log for us. And then we do give out as much information as possible to the public so that they get a good idea of what is actually happening.
Okay, because I get a number of queries sent back to me where there is perceived obstruction deliberate, particularly dates. And I just wondered if on the MT, it's fairly clear what process is being followed there.
It should be, yes. So as the officer deals with the job, they should be updating any relevant comments will go into the boxes. I mean, of course, enforcement is quite a long-winded process a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Much of the time it's resolved with a phone call, whatever else. But if you do go down the enforcement route, it can take a while. Bits and pieces of information that can be put in should be put in by the officers that the public are kept up to date with what's happening.
So we could see if there's a 138 or something like that.
Yes, yeah, all that information. So that's just a bit of a quick whistle-stop tour of how members of the public report rights of way issues. If I go back to rights of way, I would say, I mean, you go onto the Dorset Council website as well, but also if you either just put in report problem on a public right of way, it'll take you directly straight to the page if you do that by a Google search or any browser search. If you want to look at Dorset Explorer, again, you could just Google Dorset Explorer, or you can come through the council website. Click on this one where it says that one, rights of way map, where to walk, ride or cycle. Click on this, open in full screen. And within this is some user functionality which a lot of people either aren't aware of or haven't stumbled across, and there's an awful lot of information that can be gleaned by members of the public, societies, parish councils, whomever. So again, it drops you onto this map here, and this is all the rights of way within Dorset, and then one of the underused functionality of these tabs. Yeah. So within this, you can look at a very wide range of things that Dorset Council does. I think, highways, education, winter maintenance, flooding, environment states there are verge cutting. So I would say go on Dorset Explorer and have a good look through these tabs. I'm sure a lot of the information, a lot of the request for information we get, the answers are probably hidden within this somewhere at the time. So if we jump down into Weymouth for a minute. So the dotted black line here means that path is partially closed. We are working at the moment to get this to be more user-friendly and actually give more clarity to the information. Because although it says it's part closed, what it does is it takes the entire length of that right of way and tells you part of it's closed. Unless you've scrolled into the detail, you don't actually know which part of it is. So what we want to do, so for instance, this section here, this is a closure we have on Ferry Bridge. And it's this section from where my mouse is here up to there that's closed. So a relatively small section of the full length of this right of way. As you can see, or actually it's not in this instance, but that bit there is perfectly open. It's actually part by diversion. What you should be able to do, every time you click on this, if you want to know where it is closed, once you click on it, it will give you the closure notice attached to that closure. You open that up, and there you go. You can see that part A to B is closed. The diversion is via ADC. And within that as well, it gives you the information of who to contact, the reason why it's closed, how long it's going to be closed for. So for instance, this is 26 weeks. I can tell you that one's likely to be extended because we've had substantial issues there with the, it's a small clay cliff effectively, and it's just slumped straight to the sea due to perforated pipe going through the clay, which kept it saturated and which caused the slump. But we are working with landowners within the area to reroute it closer to the coast. But for now, that is how it sits on the ground. So all closures should have that attached to them. And again, I say part of this one's closed, and it's only a very small section back up here, but it shows all this. So again, the user functionality we are working through to try and make it better for you.
Sorry,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, I must have drifted off. Which tab have you got open to show the closures? Is that just the rights of way tab?
So because I've gone through the council's website to click on the rights of way in order to open that up. So if I was just to put in
Because I normally go into Explorer, just
Explorer,
straightforward Explorer, not
just like
through
this,
these. Yeah,
via this one.
yeah.
So when it loads. So yeah, a lot of people access Dorset Explorer this way,
Mm-hmm.
and you just get the blank page,
Yeah.
which is what you would start with.
Yeah.
So it's this tab here,
Yeah.
and then we get countryside.
Yeah.
Then it's click on the rights of way, and then right below is closed rights of way.
Oh, right.
And one of the useful tabs is rights of way labels.
Yeah.
When you go through the council's
Yeah.
website, all of those are turned on except for the labels.
Right.
label is being useful when you want to reference a particular path. So yeah, it's all hidden within the countryside tab, as is recently reported problems, which we're going on to now. So here's our recently reported problems, and by recent, that's the last 3 years from the data which you currently look. So if we want to knock that one off, let's go back to 2023. Let's keep it relatively relevant to where we're looking. And you can see we had a lot of reports within 2023. The green means the job has been resolved off of the system. Red means it's been received, so it's currently within our inbox. So it's waiting to be allocated for by the teams for work. And orange within that is the under investigation and the awaiting works. And also within here are some pink ones. Go over to Frampton. The pink one here. So that means that's project work. So that means quite a lot of our bridges are put down as project work. And what that means is that we need to allocate extra resource and funding in order to do it. So with our bridge funding, that gets renewed every April. So then these are booked prior to that. This is also where we're going to start logging surfacing works, aspirational areas, and all these other bits and pieces. And Gem's actually been doing some great work on where some of these aspirations are as well. So all this will be put in within the system. Parish councils and other ones. We'll stick with Frampton as we're here. What we can do is we stick on the options tab. One of the easiest functions, if you ever want to find anything on Dorset Explorer, just stick it in this top bar. Just search it, search a keyword, and then it will come up for you. So yeah, I just wanted to turn the parish boundaries on there. So there we go. All of these have a filter function within them. So I'm only interested in seeing Frampton. DB. By that. So turn off all the other boundaries other than that, which is still not that great because I've got all this other detail which is cluttering up the map that I want to look at, especially if I live within Frampton, or I'm the parish council for Frampton and the liaison officer. I don't care what's going on outside necessarily. Sorry, yeah, what's going on outside my boundary. So then I can click on the rights of way, and I can put in admin area, and then this is Frampton is S21. I can apply that. So what that's done now is only showing me the rights of way within Frampton's parish. This is where we came across a problem this morning. Not this morning, this week. So what we do here is you still go down to admin area, but whereas the previous one was S21, which is the route code for Frampton, this one you actually have to put in Frampton. And there we go. So we are working with that. So it just has a very simple button that just says parish name. So just to remove that. So now, as you can see, and you can filter on anything within any of these tabs within. Okay, so I've still got the close rights of way on which I haven't filtered that. So I turn that off. So of all the rights of way I just had open, I can now see if I want to do a parish report, a visual parish report. I can see that that is what has been reported this year. Green's resolved, orange awaiting works. There's been a red one reported, and there's no work there. So then also, as a member of the public, I can click on that. See, all right, so there's MNT 60582 is under investigation. Footbridge or stepping stones needed here. So a member of the public has reported that. That's what's on the system. And as a tool for any parishes, members of the public, anyone who wants to understand what's going on down the immediate vicinity, they can do that. That is a real whistle-stop tour of this facility. What I plan to do over the coming months is to do a presentation whereby we invite all of the parish councils along with their rights of way liaison officers to a presentation where we go through some of this functionality and also ask for amendments, questions, queries, thoughts, There's definitely aspects of this that we haven't thought about that people would like to use, and we're continually updating them. So again, that's a whistle-stop tour of Seaside and Dorset Explorer. Very valuable tools. Please use them as much as you can. And if you have any feedback for them, we are willing to listen and to make it as user friendly as possible. That's what I have on that. Is there any questions from anybody?
Two actually. Firstly, we are knee deep in television programs, which will reveal hidden treasures and so on. And to me, this is a hidden treasure. Just say to me, you need to get out there and let the great British public know what it is. And we have things like the Blackmore Vale Gazette, and there's a West Dorset magazine that Chris Slade writes little war descriptions for. And I'm sure you ought to be able to sort of plan some sort of article on them, giving people the basics of how to report problems and so on. Yeah. The other thing is the England Coast Path. Most of it is on existing rights of way, but there are bits where the Coast Path, once approved, is effectively a new right of way, and there is therefore a maintenance responsibility for someone on it. But Vanessa assured us a meeting or so ago that she isn't allowed to put them on the definitive map. So how do they show through on your system?
Okay. So the coast path in particular, and it's not just the coast. I mean, the coast path is one of the main ones for this, but there are other rights of way or trails that don't follow definitive rights as well. If we go back to our system, let me just clear these filters away now. So if I stick in coast up here, you can see we get the Southwest Coast Path route is highlighted. Oh, the other thing about these ones is if you don't want to see them as bright as they are, if you just scroll this in, you can just see the data you do want to see with a little bit of hidden background. So I'm going to tone down some of the background rights of way for the time being. So this one here, so this shows the Southwest Coast Path in its entirety on its current route as given by Natural England. But there is a couple of amendments on the ground at the moment, and of course we're waiting for the Secretary of State to confirm the order for the section from Lyme Regis to Rufus Castle. But as it goes through here, we can find all these sections. This is how specifically the coast path will be. Screen's still catching up. Not too fast. Sorry. So as you can see here, there's a marked difference there between the pink, which is the definitive line, and
that is a classic example where if a present Southwest Coast Path follows a quite lengthy inland diversion along the ridge above Abbotsbury.
Yeah.
And if Natural England get their way, a genuinely new route will be created about half a mile down the flank of the escarpment going down towards the Fleet. And so how will that show through on maps?
So on the maps, this line will be amended every time there's an amendment to the Southwest Coast Path. This line gets amended. We send it to the Southwest Coast Path Association as well. They amend their maps, and of course on the ground, all our signage will change to route the people down the correct line. So this sort of, I don't know, brown coloured line, if you like, is constantly maintained and updated to be the current line. And as you say, effectively, it is a definitive, it's in line without being as such. It is the route which people are allowed to walk down on the coast path.
Russell, I tend to change the base map to the Ordnance Survey map. And if you do that, then you'll get the shading that shows the coast path margin.
You do. I mean, reliance on the Ordnance Survey is, for a lot of the time, it's correct.
Yeah.
But yes, you do. But what this doesn't show, with the coastal fringe, the coastal margin, it doesn't show all of that which was considered as part of the application for the South West Coast Body, England Coast Map, or the King Charles III. King Charles South West Coast Path, part of the King Charles III England Coast Path, is its title moving forward. How am I getting that on a roundel? So that there is extra data within the base mapping as well within the Ordnance Survey. But again, once we get the confirmation order from Natural England, the margin will also be displayed as part of it as well. So there's additional data to come. It's just we can't do it at the moment because our hands are tied by legislation.
If you could perhaps draft some words to summarise the answer to those questions, which Gemma could paste into her minutes, that would be good, I think.
Any further questions, anyone? I've just got a couple. Sorry, Paul.
What do you think? Are you in there, or is BCP a separate system?
Separate.
Well,
I was going to say you can go to the other county,
You can.
and I think it's Hampshire and Wiltshire are also on there as well.
Yeah, and Somerset.
Yeah.
Embarrassingly, we most probably use Dorset Explorer than we do any of our own systems at BCP. So to access the rights of way network, so I use Dorset Explorer all the time.
I mean, that's a licensing thing.
I'll come on for something here.
So if I click on there's Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole, as it said, so that's all of theirs here. So we can turn that on and off. Again, like you said, it's within other counties.
The only thing that I found that it doesn't do is I look for BCP paths there because with my Ramblers hat on, it doesn't show the path numbers. That's the only thing I don't think.
I think
If you actually click on
the line.
Oh right, does it? Oh right.
You actually click on.
Thank you. That's a useful tip.
ID.
Yeah.
So if we click on for the other counties,
Yeah.
you won't actually click on the line of.
Right. Okay. Oh, great. Oh, well, I've learned something.
While we're discussing that, I think it might be an appropriate moment. I get a number of issues where people cannot log a complaint about a right of way in BCP area because it's predicated towards highways. It's a number of people. What's going wrong? Because clearly the public are having problems.
Whether Pip wants to come in, he's online. Whether Pip wants to come in on that.
Indeed, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. So the system should actually work exactly the same as Dorset's, really. We do have, in fact, if you Google just BCP report it, the first link that will turn up is report a problem on a road or pavement. That should cover every single public right of way. If you do submit a report. I think we did have a bit of a problem going back a few weeks ago whereby there was a slight lack of communication between a couple of teams within Environment, the service unit that maintains all of our public rights of way. Some of the reports were coming back to me, which ended up in sort of a circular sort of issue there. But I should have now addressed that. So anybody going on to the BCP highway defect page should be met with the exact same sort of system as Russ was talking about there. And of course, you can create an account on there to track any reports, to chase up any responses via that.
Wimborne, yeah.
Well, I'm just plugging some.
What do you want to BCP?
BCPS, sorry.
Yeah.
There was an issue that several people raised to me that
Yeah.
you can't actually put something in the middle of a field in a rural location. You could only put your marker down for something on a highway.
I see. Okay.
And it's come
Yeah.
from more than one person.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Um,
Graham,
Are you thinking specifically in the BCP
yes,
area?
definitely.
Right, okay, because we've got two systems,
Mm,
one for right of way, one for highways within
Right.
Dorset. And when you try to log a problem on a unclassified county road
mm,
on the Dorset highway system, they aren't recognised as highways, so you can't log those problems in the middle of a field on a UCR, for example, or on a right of way using the highways. It's called confirm, but the highways reporting system. So maybe that is what they're suggesting, but it's definitely BCP.
Most of them
I
came
don't
from
know
BCP,
that is an issue for Dorset.
can I,
So navigate it through to.
Yeah, there's a hand. I'll just take the hand up because I think you want.
Yeah.
Please come in.
is that all right? Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to share my screen to demonstrate this. I live in Longham, so I'm right on the boundary of BCP. So much of my walking day to day is, within the BCP area, Millam's Mead, around those kind of areas. So I quite often want to report issues when I see them, and it's just impossible. And I'm happily, Philip, share my screen and just show that user
Yes, please.
experience.
Yeah.
Do you want me
Let's
to
take a
do
look.
that?
That'd be really good.
The system lets me here. I've got it open ready. Can everyone see that?
Yep. Can see it.
Yeah, got that. Yep. So I've just put in BCP report rights of way issue. So I'll go to the page that it gives me there. I come down. It says if you found a problem on a path, report it to us, and then it just goes to report a problem on a road or pavement. So there is no option here that relates to to rights of way. The only one that's even close is a highway defect, and if you go to that, and it does mention footpath, but if I go to anywhere, it will just take me to report a pothole highway defect. There is nothing here that lets me, and if I go to that and start, then all you get is the choices that you're left with, which are, I think, pavement, flooding, or block drain.
Roads or pavement defects. So if we went for road defect, for example.
Roads or pavement defect.
I would just say not an emergency. So,
Okay,
yeah.
no. So I would, even where you've gone now, I would not be going, if I was thinking rights away, I would not be going to roads or pavement.
Yeah, is it?
but-
Yes, the wording isn't great, is
I'll
it? Because most
continue
people
without
assume that's like a
logging in.
carriageway.
Yeah, exactly. I would never, and I think I did go through this and it didn't take me, but it said roads or pavements. And I don't know if I put that in, does it do anything? I don't know.
BCP address.
Yeah, that's.
But it's not giving me any sort of, I've got to put all my details in there.
No, it's asking for the nearest address to the defect.
Yeah, which is
but-
fine.
but-
Say yeah.
That's still, yeah, it's still not great for like rural areas, as you say. It makes me wonder as to,
No, if I,
I mean-
put in, I don't know, Millam's come up, will it? I don't do anything. No, not by the look of it. Oh, no. Nothing. Don't know don't know if I can come out of that, but hopefully demonstrating the fact that this is still a highway defect.
Yeah, I think I'd
Please do, Andy.
I'll come in.
Sorry.
I think we'll take that. Thank you for that. I think we'll take that
Yeah.
away as action.
Sorry, yeah, if I'd come out of that, but that was really what I wanted to demonstrate, was that even, you know, aside from what we're talking about here, which is obviously the wider population, even on a personal level, I have found it absolutely impossible to find any way of reporting anything to BCP.
I think it's something we can take away as an action, as you've clearly demonstrated. I think
Yes.
it's already something that Ellen has started to explore with PIP, because we have a different sort of setup. You sort of, obviously we've got a smaller rights of way team, got a smaller rights of way network. So all defects go to our highway street scene team. So street scene are the team that go out and do the maintenance of the footpaths. We only have Ellen and Pip, who are the only two rights of way officers in BCP. So there's a certainly different setup than Russell and Graham have got. So I don't know how many officers you have yourselves. So
Yeah, not enough.
not enough, but yeah, I'm sure. But so yeah, I'm Pip to aware.
I mean, we do get the report, but I think sometimes we get reports, they say do rights of way team, and actually when you look into it, it's nothing to do with rights of way. So then you've got to then, so I don't know if we had like a separate rights of way, making it clear this is for rights of way instead of having like a generic.
Yeah, so, you know, the key thing is, can you locate something in the middle of a field in a rural area where you don't know the postcode and just drop the complaint in? And that's crucially it. That's, I think it's vital.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm getting probably 2 a month. So you can amplify that, and those are the ones who are persistent coming through. Us, I don't know what the ramblers are getting.
I think you could safely say the system from the past has mostly been based more on an urban situation. So the old Paul and Bournemouth systems were very urban. And obviously since BCP has taken over Christchurch, that would have been managed by Russell. Then that would have been on that system or previous Dorset system, but obviously BCP have taken that over. So I think it's an action we need to take away.
Okay, thank you.
If you're in urban, you do know the postcode, and it will be near
Something.
something, yeah, which is different to what you say, like a rural
A
setting.
lot of the time, visiting countryside do not know postcode.
No.
You know,
Because there's still a lot of crossover in complaint reporting from our highway system to our rights of way system. We get lots of rights of way stuff on confirmed system and vice versa. So there's still work for us to do, really, to make sure they are clearly defined and to let the public know the difference between.
Can I ask Graham a question? It was something that you said a little while ago. You said that the highways reporting system doesn't let you report things on UCRs.
Mm-hmm.
Does, if I wanted a UCR that's primarily used as in the way that a right of way is used, can you do that via the rights of way reporting system?
Not as accurately as perhaps you'd like,
because
you have to put it to the closest.
Otherwise it says this, you're nowhere near a right of way. Try again.
So no, it doesn't.
Right.
It's one of those grey areas.
Yes. I thought so. I thought that was
you know,
okay. Yeah, thank you.
You just touched on liaison between parish councils. In Devon, we have something called P3 or Parish Path Partnership. You have something similar here. So, you know, if there's something minor like a gateway needs some gravelling done, can you actually phone somebody in the parish council and just say, oh, you know, go to a hardware place and grab some gravel and book it to us and have it done to save you going out with one of your team?
No, is the short answer for that one. No, we don't. We do have different levels of what we currently call them rights of way liaison officers, and people who work within, you know, sort of, there's a few people that are sort of like the old parish links there as well, who do go out and say, oh, there was a problem on this right away, we've been out and resolved it, you know, we cut it bad, there was a tree branch hanging over, potentially a bit of gravel been put in a gateway. Of course, these people are, that is not consistent throughout the county. There are different levels of engagement with us, which is like we'd like to sort out as well. but of course we are ultimately responsible for the surface as well. So as well as, you know, there's we have to make sure that the parish councils themselves, they generally do, but you know, when they're going out, do they have the right insurance? So it's an aspiration to work on, whereby we have these, you know, these empowered volunteers in the community who are passionate about the rights of way and want to get out and do more for the rights of way, which then again frees up our time to do other bits and pieces. But currently, in answer to your question, the answer is no. We don't have that.
The other thing is triaging. You know, I know during COVID, councils were inundated with reports.
Cows in fields.
In cows in fields. Yeah. So you somehow have to triage it, and is there a way of triaging it at a parish level so you don't have to go out there to help you? No.
No, but the triage generally doesn't take too long for what the teams do every morning when they come in. They log in to their area, and for instance, or if there's someone's off an area, they'll log into the areas and just see what the priorities are. We have unknown priorities, unknown things that we need to get out and look at straight away. You know, potential dangerous animals, for instance, bits and pieces, and then they'll triage it from there, and then they'll move jobs around, and then they can. The best laid plans of our teams, you know, they'll come in, they'll go home on Tuesday, knowing what they're doing Wednesday. They'll come in Wednesday morning, open the system up, and those plans have been put to the side because something's over. Like I said, that doesn't mean that job won't get done. It just means that our priority system goes like that. So no, we triage it ourselves. And,
The chair makes some very, very good points about what happens in Devon. And you may be surprised I'm actually talking about Devon, but the clerk to one of our parish councils at Dorset is also the clerk to Tiverton Town Council. And therefore, I hear quite a lot about how towns and parish councils are actually encouraged to do perhaps more in Devon. They are in Dorset. And it does occur to me whether we would benefit from the attendance of our next meeting from somebody at Dorset, Devon Council. I am not the font of all knowledge in respect of Devon Council. I do know they have a very good councillor called Andrea Davis, I believe, who is in charge of highways. Is that right, Chair?
Yeah. I was thinking of Ros Davies, who's in charge of B3, and also Hilary Winter, who's the forum officer for the DCAP, Devon Countryside Access Forum. And I know, having attended one of their meetings recently, they would appreciate some joint working, you know, so we can both discover the good practices we've got in Dorset and the good practices in Devon, and have a learning meeting.
Well, one of the other Hilary used every year or so to organise a meeting of the black chairs in the southwest, so we could get together and crown each other's shoulders and, you know, identify things of current interest. But unfortunately, as part of the general process of cutting back Natural England's access support teams, that role effectively folded. And so Hilary now doesn't have much of a remit to look outside of Devon, unfortunately. But we've always been envious of the level of support the Devon lab gets from Hilary.
I always circulate their newsletter that comes out quarterly, and it's always a good read, not only for Devon, but what's happening nationally. Would there be a way that we can, I know this should come up underneath a business, but I think it's an opportune moment, whether or not we could get the two forums together. Is that possible? I'm happy to act as liaison between, I think, two, just to see if we can have this sort of.
I think you need to actually write the agenda of the meeting first, so people know what they've been invited to go and talk about.
Okay. I'd try and keep the agenda fairly fluid so that we could have just, even if informal discussion around the table.
From a more sort of inward-looking perspective, when a couple of years ago we provided the council with a shopping list of the issues that we wanted it to look at as part of the right-of-way improvement plan, one specific item was re-energising the parish right-of-way liaison officer network, which at present best be described as moribund, stroke patchy, I'm afraid. And I don't know, is anything tangible going to come back on that one?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it is. It's at the forefront of our minds, getting it going because they're invaluable. It's we haven't got a chance to get out there every single day, whereas most of them have.
Yeah, what I sort of hinted on a minute ago, there's a presentation being developed, and we are partly going through a restructure at the moment. And once that's completed and those elements are sorted, it's my aspiration to get out at least once a year to the parishes, or bring them into a location so that we can sit down, have a discussion, have a meeting, and then give feedback both ways on how we can help each other and also just improve the rights of way network, because as we know, they're becoming invaluable. Green transport, green infrastructure, and since COVID, I mean, a lot of people, it's the first time they found the rights of way. They assumed it was for dog walkers and that was it, but now they realise it's an asset for us all, and it's free, which is the key for a lot of people to be out there this summer. We're in a difficult financial time, so.
If Gemma, if we have an action point on the minutes to have some joint get-together meeting with Devon, and I'm happy to speak to Hilary Winter. Just throw some dates around so that we can share common ground and common practices. Okay.
I mean, you're the one who's taking it on. My personal take on it is the real priority is getting our own house in order in terms of having a parish liaison officer network that really works. That's priority number one. When we've shown good our own house in order and we can make things happen internally, yes, to then talk with Devon about cross-fertilisation of ideas, that will be fine.
Well, I would take a differing view. I mentioned Ross Davis, who runs the P3s in Devon. She's found a way of sorting out insurances, training, and there's a lot to learn from there. Yeah. Why reinvent the wheel when there's something working there? So there's a cross-fertilisation of ideas.
This isn't to decry our link with Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, because clearly there are residents on the other side of the county from the ward that I represent that will walk in BCP. But clearly there is a natural link with Devon, because we are part of something called the Jurassic Coast that is so important. But as Churchill would put it, it takes courage to stand up and talk. It also takes courage to sit down and listen. And that's what I want to do. I want to listen to how Devon do things and what we can learn from that.
Okay. I'll put some wheels in motion. It can only be for the betterment of the neighbourhood we represent. Right, I think that's tied up the Dorset presentation item 3. Sorry, I thought we had a separate agenda item on that. Yes, the ROIP update.
Very briefly, I'll take that one.
Very briefly.
Now, obviously, as you will know, we've been having a bit of a restructure, and the ROIP has slipped timeline-wise because of that. Happy to say that you might have noticed on the minutes that Russell is now our green space manager as of next Tuesday. So the restructure is moving on, and he has the pleasure of developing the rabbit. From the work that I did previously and within it over this past 10 months or so, and what Giles Nicholson has also been doing, obviously we're going to be probably helping Russ do that. An approximate timeline for it is obviously Russ has got to get feet under the table in terms of sorting out the next level of the restructure, and very approximately we're looking at hopefully having some kind of draft done by the end of September, out for draft consultation for October, November and December, back to us for final fettling January, February, and then hopefully something out March, April. Okay, it's all very approximate and very fluid because Russ has done a lot of work on, but that is what we are hoping.
I'm not going to shoot the messenger, but the nearer we get to it, the further away it seems to be. Because, you know, Tara Hansford was going to have it out before Christmas. Bridget Betts promised me early February it was going to be out within 2 weeks before she went on holiday.
Indeed.
I'm not shooting my breath.
Yeah. No,
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm not shooting the messenger at all. But
yeah.
we
I know we have wanted to get on with it, and but of course there are other aspects of the job.
Understood.
And you know, Dorset councillors chose to make that cost saving of what was Tara's wages, and not backfilling that role like for like, has led it to be put onto us, and the knock-on effects of that. Sorry to say, it is at the forefront.
I understand what you're saying. As I said, I'm not shooting the messenger at all, Graham, because how hard you work with the team. Okay, Paul.
Obviously, the knotty issue in the middle of the new railway is resource availability to deliver these grand aspirations that we all have. And so at some point in the process, we need to have an internal dialogue about resources. So will this draft that you're talking about in the early autumn, will that have a degree of sign off internally in terms of, yes, the resources to do it have been earmarked, or will it still be at sort of the wish list stage?
I can't imagine that there'll be actual money put aside earmarked for it as such. There'll just be identification of places to get funding and resources, but there won't be a pot put to one side saying this can only be used for right-of-way improvements. I can't see that being a thing. That's not how the council operates. Obviously, we've just got its annual budget allocation. We have to work within that. We don't have a kind of a slush fund like the old district councils used to dip into anymore.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Graham. We'll move on to item 4 now, which is BCP. I know we've heard from Philip a bit earlier. Are you still with us?
I'm indeed still with you.
Right. I've got to note congratulations from the DLAF on the BCP road publication. So you pass the mentioning post first.
Oh, I see. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, I mean, my sympathies to Dorset. The row-ups always seem to never come soon enough, really. But I suppose the corollary of that is that they're obviously popular, in demand. People want to see them. You know, we've had plenty of good feedback, even before we'd finished writing the improvement plan. You know, people are really eager to see their ideas come to fruition. And there never really seems to be a shortage of ideas. I think echoing a comment made earlier, it's just about sort of the deliverability trying to make rights of way improvement plans both ambitious and deliverable is a fine art, really. You want to make sure that you're inspiring people with what you're proposing, but also not sort of over-promising. I hope that we've struck that balance correctly with ours. But anyway, let's just, I'll move on to just this little update here via PowerPoint. Okay, so just yeah, just a short update, some of the items of interest that we're currently looking at. Sort of a random subsection of stuff that we're looking at, really, but things that we might think are sort of pertinent and maybe relevant to Dorset as well. Something interesting that's been worked on actually more by my highly esteemed colleague Lawrence Harrell, and also a little bit by me, is the preparation of a little map of cycle barriers across BCP Council. We've got a policy, whether informal or formally made, of barriers out. The idea that all of these cycle barriers really are seen in hindsight to be just a massive policy mistake, really. They prioritize the idea that cyclists represent some kind of a threat to pedestrians, but as has been very correctly pointed out on numerous occasions, particularly by my sustainable transport colleagues, it is really the cars. It is the cars that are killing and hurting people. It isn't bicycles. And, you know, we should be encouraging cycling wherever and whenever we can. And every time we've got one of these cycle barriers on a path, it maybe prevents some of that modal shift from occurring, because it contributes to the disconnection of cycle routes. But also there is an accessibility problem, and that is being exacerbated partly because of the way in which the demographics are now shifting. We have an aging population, and those individuals are more likely to experience issues with mobility, therefore more likely to use wheelchairs and the like. We had a good case study actually just within the past couple of weeks. Had a report come in, somebody, a wheelchair user who lived right next to a path, in fact, and they've got a path tantalizingly close to where they live, but of course they've got these ridiculous cycle barriers on. And their particular case is that they lived in the corner of this road, and of course in their case they would have an additional 240 meters sort of added on, and it's not just the distance which would have changed as a consequence of their daily journey to the shops here. It's also the fact that actually having to use a wheeled mobility device can be difficult on footways. Some of them do get obstructed by cars. That makes things more difficult. If you take that example and you multiply that out by every single barrier there is, then, you know, I mean, these particular barriers, they weren't even accounted for on our map of cycle barriers. There's so many that we haven't even found. There's loads of them out there. So in this particular case, we, from the report being made to the barriers coming out, I think it was about 4 weeks in total. I'd like to see whether we can get this down to maybe 2 weeks for a report for barriers coming out, where it's restricting mobility access. But in any case, preemptively, wherever we've got capital to spare, we will just go out and remove these barriers wherever we find them, particularly where they're next to schools or near hospitals, likely to cause problems. So that is sort of an ongoing policy priority that we're looking into every single year now until they're all out, unless in some kind of an exceptional circumstance there really is some kind of a massive problem. But even then, when it comes to things like motorcyclists sometimes using paths, I think that usually these individuals can be caught now by the police using mobile phone tracking. Usually the motorcyclists aren't smart enough to turn off their mobile phones and all the rest of it. So, you know, data forensics are pretty good now. I think the time of the cycle barrier is now nigh and gone. Okay, so interesting.
If I could just butt in there very
Yes, go on.
quickly. Sustrans are very keen to remove these barriers
Mhm.
because it allows all user groups to use the cycleways. And a colleague of yours, when we were discussing cycleways before, said, you know, equestrians, they fully appreciate will be using cycle routes as well, because let's face it, the roads are getting far too challenging to ride on, and out of safety, equestrians are using it. So really, we should be looking at it as multi-use to allow everybody to use them.
Yeah, absolutely
I
agree
just
with
make
that. Yeah,
comment.
yeah, that's right. And you know, usually we won't particularly enforce cycling on public footpaths. You know, we just don't get reports about collisions between cyclists and pedestrians ever on our public rights of way. It is just such an incredibly rare thing. It is something which is feared more than experienced, and so we've got to get real, and we've got to, as you say, promote being able to share these paths between different users. So yeah, it's a good initiative, and particularly with people who require sort of mobility assistance. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Parley. We've had this enforcement issue. It was actually passed on to me by Dorset in 2020. There is a golf course in Parley just south of the Herne Airport, and there's a driving range here which is connected to it. We've got a public right of way illustrated in pink, a footpath. This is the way it looked before 2020, and then we're tipped off during COVID. The driving range took it upon themselves to give themselves a really nice extension of their driving range, and this led to the obstruction of the legal line of the path. There was no planning procedure for this, and there certainly wasn't anything coming over our desks for the legal diversion of this path. Instead, they sort of set out a path themselves without really letting us know. We decided to let them sort of get on with it in 2020 rather than sort of stop their work sort of halfway through, because it just would have been left in an absolute state if we had enforced them. So we let them get on with it, and they laid out this path in red, and it's generated a few problems, not just because there is an illegal path diversion, but also they've removed a bund, a bit of land which was there, which helped to block out the floodlights. And of course, now at night, you're treated to what looks like a U2 rock concert or something on the horizon, which just sort of it creates incredible light pollution across this area. So we're trying to regularize this issue somehow. And the way in which it's been done, first we went through planning to try and get planning enforcement to try and force Parley Golf to submit a planning application for the movement of several hundred tons of earth, which surely would require planning. I think for whatever reason, that hasn't actually been chased up via planning enforcement. Instead, they're just being asked to reinstate the bund and to put the planning in just for the net, rather than the movement of all the earth, which is a bit confusing to me. I'm not an absolute expert on planning law, but I've done enough planning in my time to know that surely moving hundreds of tons of earth in the greenbelt would constitute an engineering work and therefore require planning permission. Regardless, we are now enforcing the original line, and where it now stands is that we've issued enforcement, but the way in which they're sort of trying to make this legal is by submitting a planning application purely for the bund, not for the driving range extension. It is purely to re-implement just this bit of land. And after some pretty long phone calls with their agents, what we're really asking for them to do is to give us let's see, I've got this laser pointer here. What we'd really like to see, which would work, is if we could move the path to this seemingly spare strip of land up here, which would be nice and spacious and sort of more fitting of this path's previous character, which, as you'll note, was sort of had a sort of a more pleasant sort of verdant. It was wider. Now it's sort of jammed right next to a track which is used for a sewage works access. It's not so fantastic. And I think the big question there is, if they're putting in this planning application purely for this bund, the legal test there is, well, is it necessary to allow development to commence? And at this point, I'm actually sort of minded to say, well, no, how can that be? Because if the planning application is purely for the bund, then the current legal line of the path, surely you could just whip it around the north side of this bund. It might not even actually require diversion. So it's a really interesting sort of sticky area of planning law and rights of way. And we're trying to sort of iron this out in a way which is going to result in a decent result for our path users, and which hopefully will allow the driving range to just get on with what they want to do. There is a solution there, but they refuse to put the path onto this nice area. And so we're at loggerheads, really. I've yet to actually see the planning application for the bund. But yeah, that's just an interesting bit of drama which is occurring at the moment and taking up far too much time. So yeah, interesting that is my item. So I'm going to hand you over to Ellen to talk about some of the things that Ellen's looking at the moment. Over to you, Ellen, unless there's any questions about the polygolf.
Just block one. Well, yeah, sorry. How much public outcry is there for you removing these cycle barriers? Just going back to the other bit you started on. Because we're requesting more barriers all the time, and so we have to justify not putting things in. So is there been much kick off from the general public about removing these barriers?
Well, it isn't sort of largely announced, because the way in which it works is they're just occasionally removed. The only complaints I tend to receive are from people who are being obstructed by the barriers, not necessarily people who believe additional cyclists on paths would be a threat to them. So no, in fact, no, not really received many complaints, if any complaints actually. And if they do complain, then the case study that I immediately refer them to is the fact that the only loss of life that we have experienced on any of our public rights of way in recent memory is, of course, the tragic loss of life of a schoolgoer who was cycling on a path and their brakes failed and they went headfirst into one of these cycle barriers and actually died. So the safety arguments for cycle barriers is nullified by that. They are dangerous. They were never fit for purpose. And so, yeah, there's no arguments for them on a safety ground or an accessibility ground. Definitely not that either. So, yeah.
They do stop a lot of the users who would otherwise use these paths, don't they? Wheelchairs, pushchairs.
Absolutely they do. Yeah, they're no good at all. They're just a policy mistake. I think so much has been learned from that, and now we have to undo the errors of the past, and somewhat great expense really. It's going to cost me tens of thousands to remove these things, but they've got to come out.
Just going back to the Parley situation.
Yeah.
If you have a situation where it isn't granted planning permission to ratify what has been done, you do have the recourse to reinstate and charge the landowner for the reinstatement.
Yeah, well, that's what's sort of going on in parallel. I mean, the arguments that I've made are exactly that we are pursuing enforcement with them. And unless they can sort of regularize this with a solution which is acceptable to all, then that is, they very much risk having all of their works reverted. That is the current state of play, Phil. So, yeah, we're not going to hold back on that one. It will be enforced if they don't give us exactly what we want and what's legally required. Moreover.
Ellen, sorry, just going.
I think we might have mentioned this one at the last DLAP, but it's just really an update to say that we've met with the highway maintenance team. And I think we said this was an important part because it connects in people that work on the industrial area to shops like Tesco. And so we went down, and as you can see from the next photo, there is quite a lot of foliage which needs to be removed in order to start asphalting the surface. And I think we previously mentioned that the route would require a knee-high fence along the bank where there was a gap. But the unit next door has now installed a fence, so that's not something we probably need to look at. I think we previously said our estimated cost was about 20,000. But I think what we've been given has gone up to 33,000. So now we're just waiting for the highway maintenance team to start looking at data, start clearing foliage, which will take quite a bit of time to look at. It's very difficult to get through. Just moving on to the next bit. One of our current public consultations is for a public path diversion order at Branksome Dean Chine, where it is that the current line of footpath 63, the route, you come up to a viewpoint and then you're meant to carry on, and it's a very steep drop down. And we've received emails from the public concerned about the gap and people and public safety, especially children or animals, running on ahead and going over the edge. So on a site visit, it doesn't appear that the route has been used for some time, and it is very overgrown with shrubs. And we have fenced across the gap to prevent access. So we are proposing diverting the route down some steps that are already there, as you can see in the dashed line, and then it goes through the car park to rejoin the highway. Whilst it's not ideal as the route is longer and it does go through a car park, we couldn't see any other way on the ground to divert the route. At the time of doing this presentation, we were made aware that if we made the order that we would receive an objection. However, responding to the potential objector, they have said they have gone out and looked at it on the ground, and they have put forward some proposals that they would like to see dealt with before looking into this diversion. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And then I think the last slide that we just got to mention, oh yeah, that's the route that's already on the ground. I'm in Street View, which is this project of images of all our public rights of way available on Google Maps. And it's to help us a survey to make them more visible and to help with any issues such as boundaries and possible infringement. Doing so.
Any questions, anyone?
In your, in following on from that reference to Straight View, I'm sure in the draft of your new rights-of-way improvement plan, there was a suggestion that somebody should be sent out clutching one of these 360-degree view cameras, which seemed to me to be a brilliant idea. Would that feed into that?
I think that is it. I think it can put, but that is how you then get the image, which you can upload on.
Yeah, that is the exact same project that we're talking about. I don't think we're going to get access to a 360-degree camera anytime soon. We did test the technology a few years ago, and it wasn't fantastic. Maybe the technology's moved on since then, but actually it's achievable just by using a regular camera phone. Because you can now use the Google Street View video service, whereby you can just walk along and take a few Street View pictures. And really, this project serves a couple of purposes. Firstly, it does make the paths more visible and it completes sort of the record that people enjoy using on Google Maps to have a look at paths for whatever purpose they have. Maybe it's to gauge how accessible or attractive that path might be if they're planning a visit. But also there is a really crucial purpose behind this. It allows us to better record and maintain a record of boundaries, because one of the problems, of course, we have is that quite regularly people will try and extend their fences a little bit, and can be very, very difficult trying to keep up with making sure that everybody's sort of playing ball with their boundaries. It's such an important thing. I mean, we make the best possible use we can with the Ordnance Survey. Obviously, their master map is really good and it's pretty accurate. Usually, just by looking at the historic Ordnance Survey record, we can catch people out from where they have moved their fences. But sometimes it just isn't that precise. We end up losing width from our paths inches at a time. And obviously, if you have a street view record of that, you can much more easily see that and prove it, and then use that as evidence if you're pursuing enforcement. So it is a really good project. It's going to be great once we start getting on with it, really.
Can I just confirm, are you doing that just at the entrances to the parks, or are you walking the entire network using this?
We'd have to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what I was assuming.
Yeah.
Sorry, first of all, thought you said you're just doing it from the road.
Google Maps, can't you?
Yeah.
But you can't go any further down them,
Yeah.
so you'd have to walk the whole route to get the image of the route.
That's a great idea. So I thought that was the case.
Yeah.
I thought it was implied that you were just taking it from the roadside. I was like, well, it kind of already exists.
Oh, sorry.
Well, Andy, then Paul.
I was going to come with a couple more BCP related matters. One of the tasks that Ellen is exploring at the moment is sort of linked to what you're talking about, the parish liaison, is how we sort of get that community engagement. Now, we only have 4 parish councils anyway, town and parish councils. We have Christchurch, Burton and Wington, Herne, Highcliffe and Walkford. But the rest of the 350,000 population don't have a parish council or liaison officer. So it's sort of, it's Ellen's exploring how we get that community engagement. And Ellen's been talking to Dorset and to other councils to understand that sort of liaison. I know some councils do adopt a path and things like that, and sort of rights of people who have a strong interest in rights of way. So it's just, Ellen's just explore, one of our tasks is to explore that and how we do that, because we have a completely different setup than Dorset without those town and parishes. And although actually thinking about it, the Christchurch area might be an area we could actually do parish liaison. We do have the 4 there, so that might be something to explore. But that was one thing.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, 'cause that is kind of BCP at the moment, are driving the more community
That's
all
right.
over, so it does tie in with that.
It does, yeah, 'cause it ties in very nicely with corporate objectives, and also the new leadership, the new sort of leadership of BCP Council is a driver, is about community engagement. I just had a couple of other BCP matters. Obviously, as earlier, Andy Hadley is our portfolio holder. He's an independent member in Poole, and he will be happy to be involved again. No offence taken, Simon. We'd be more than happy to be involved in a meeting with Devon. We're obviously BCP is an integral part of Dorset, but we'd be more than happy to work with Devon as listen to what they've got. So that'd be great. Thank you, Simon.
Yes, just taking up on those points. I'm sure we have a lot to learn from Devon, and I haven't really covered off the area in connection with all the wonderful reopening of railway lines and new stations, etc., which provide access for many people in a different way, not least for people to go walking in the countryside and indeed in towns, and the new railway stations, and indeed to use bicycles to access different parts of the county using the improved rail network. So yes, indeed, we can all learn a lot.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, and sort of linked to the Spirit Partnership, Philip, I did put a proposal to Gemma, obviously in the Spirit of Partnership, whether we'd be more than happy to have you all come to BCP and have perhaps a liaison meeting in the future, but I'm thinking early 2024 maybe, and have one at BCP. I was thinking Upton Country Park, but that we have, there's meetings, there's rooms there we can use. But obviously we've just got to check the team's set up, or the sort of video set up at Upton Country Park. But as BCP officers, we can hire the meeting rooms at Upton Country Park. And as well, we felt that'd be an ideal opportunity, perhaps after the meeting, to have a discussion about cross-boundary issues around the Upton Country Park area with ourselves and the trailway and everything else. And that would give an ideal opportunity to have a walk, have a look, and sort of link up with that. So just in the spirit of partnership, I felt, does that seem a potential?
I welcome it. I really do, genuinely. Yes.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll liaise then for a future meeting.
Paul.
Could I just close the loop on this straight view issue? Because that potentially is a very useful way of responding to your duties under the Equality Act in terms of helping, particularly wheelchair users, but also mothers with prams and so on, to get out into the countryside. And there are so many different designs of wheelchair with such a huge range of tolerance of rough surfaces and so on, that it would be an absolute godsend if people could actually walk the route on their screen and make their own decision as to will my machine cope with that or not.
Yeah, just sorry to follow on, like one of those things we were just talking about, Franks and Dean Shine. Some of the routes there, you start it and it's only that you get to a certain point halfway that you realise there are some very steep steps, and there is nothing we do to advertise. It's just to say this route contains steps, which, like you say, would be beneficial for a range of people. Not just because I know my mum has mobility issues, and when you get down to a route, you're just going to have to turn around. So yes, it's good for people to be aware what is there on the ground
If you could,
for them to make a decision.
perhaps get one or two volunteers just to go for a walk with a headset mounted camera would be better than nothing.
Yeah, I think that is one of the reasons that it has been suggested, like you say, just to let people have that decision, have that information, make that decision.
I think that wraps up the sort of first half. Item 5, I know we just have a report from Vanessa. She's not online. So really, we can knock that item on the head.
We really need to let Mirella's fingers cool down.
I was going to say that ends the session, but we're going to start back at item 6, because item 5, we've had an email report. If anybody has any additional issues, we get back to Vanessa. But if we take 10 minutes or okay, thank you. If you give me the nod.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, right. Welcome back, everyone.
About to switch off that.
That's the TV.
Hold on, we've got technical issues this end.
It's got 49 seconds. This or that.
Right, there we go. Right, thanks, Gemma. Straight into item 6, multi-user routes. who wants to give the update on this Piddle Valley route progress?
I can.
Please.
Yeah, taking that. I would, working with the area and moving that one forward. So we have agreed routes, know where it's going. I am due to have a catch up with the team involved with putting it in on the ground. But as far as I believe, there's funding sorted, the route is sorted, the specification is sorted. We just need to get implementation, and we can't do that until next spring.
Okay, when you say the route is sorted,
yeah,
I thought it was going to be the bridleway.
It is, yeah.
It is going to be the bridleway.
Yeah, so all of the liaison with landowners, parish council, any and all other interested parties has been done. The bridleway will be, the surface of the bridleway will be enhanced so that it's usable for the entire year.
Okay. When you say enhanced, what does that mean?
So currently there'll be additional material added to the surface, additional drainage, and it will be brought up to a spec whereby you'll be able to say
compacted gravel.
Compacted gravel. Our standard rural spec. So there'll be, in some areas there'll be some cobblestone put in to allow drainage to flow through, and then we'll move up through type 1 with a 10 or 5 to dust in the shape of park. So
excellent.
It'll be a great asset to the valley and those using it and wanting to move between the villages.
Okay.
So we can't do anything until the funding and that funding doesn't come open. It's there and set and ready, but we can't get that funding out until after implementing it. It won't be done until spring next year, which is the opportune time to do it. Fortunately, we've got another one of our wettest months for people of the valley to endure, but there is light on the horizon.
That's good news. Thank you. The next item: do Dorset Council have a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, LC WIP?
It's not something that we have kind of partaken in. I guess that would be more Wayne Sayers' bag, wouldn't it?
We can take that question away,
yeah,
and answer it post meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we're making assumptions.
I was always given to understand that the cycling aspect was supposed to be reflected into your local transport plan. Is that correct?
There is cycling within the local transport plan, yes. And there's been big provision in order to, funding has come from those streams and also routes are enhanced via that stream. Yeah. Of course, when we upgrade our bridleways, there's cyclists are allowed by definition. So it's these are the other ones. The other ones that we're looking at with the cycleways, that's taken up by local transport plan because they sit.
When you say upgrade the bridleways, you mean like tarmac?
Yeah, no. Well, not necessarily. No.
Or sealed surface.
Sorry. Yeah, when I say upgrade, what I mean is make the surface suitable and usable for those. We have our key routes. We have our aspirational routes. We have those that are, with the horse riders want some areas where they can go for a ride and be in the country, but also there's other ones where most of the users are not horse. There are people walking from places of residence, built up areas. So yeah, we create a surface whereby the horses can use it, but so can wheelchairs, pushchairs, children on their little bikes, and with stabilizers and so. So by upgraded, we mean we take it from a crossfield path to a surface suitable for everybody's use.
Do you ever look at FlexiPave or Crush Rubber Crumb?
We FlexiPave, no, haven't done in our. So we are quite successful with the stuff we have been using. Let's say with the mended stone.
Yeah.
Generally.
Okay. Let's just say.
And if you've used it, Brian?
And you use kind of the rubber crumb stuff in play areas, really, for impact zones.
It has been used very successfully on paths. I was when in Gloucestershire, the Nailsworth Valley Trail, where you've got a lot of tree roots that grow under it and just raise it rather than go up through the surface. And so maintenance saving cost. And also, it's porous, allows water to go through, and it's green. You know, it's got green in the tarmac.
Just to mention the North Dorset Trailway, and I'm really struck about how well used that is, how well the cafe is doing on Wednesday, etc. We're running out of crockery. Brilliant. But the actual surface of the trailway between the Stour Bridge, a mile from Stones to Newton, from the Stour Bridge through to Beer Marsh Farm, that surface isn't quite so good and it's somewhat narrow. So when we start talking about walkers, cyclists, and equestrian users, I just wonder if there's any plans to improve the surface or indeed slightly the width, because there is a
I'll take that one, 'cause
difference
that's in my batch.
in width of the trailway, I would argue,
Absolutely.
between northwest of the Stour up towards Stones to Newton, which is that much wider than southeast of the Stour Bridge down towards Beer Marsh Farm.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to be looking at doing this resurfacing all over it, and it gets a much reduced width through almost lack of use. The bit from Sturminster down to the Fiddleford Bridge over the River Stour is obviously very intensively used. It's pretty much bang a mile long. People know how far they're going to go to walk back again, and because they are generally walking 2, 3, 4 abreast, it obviously keeps the vegetation back off the edges because they're walking on it. Any further on, so from the Fiddleford Bridge down through to Beer Marsh Farm, it's a much quieter bit. People are generally walking in 1s and 2s max with a dog, so it's not getting the wear on the side, which is why it gets narrow. So yeah, we do have to go back in there and scratch it back.
And my second follow-up question is that where all the brilliant work has been done from Powerstock Common through to Tollopacorum.
This bit is Russ's.
Where, for instance, you have even a storm shelter. Is there a plan for a storm shelter on that section of the North Dorset Trailway that I referred to previously?
So I'll pick that one up, the first part of that one, because I don't know if Graham's having a shelter. That was actually put in by the landowner. So the shelter that was going along there, that and the bench, that's been put in by the landowner. That was his aspiration to have it there. That's why that is in there. That was installed.
Yes,
and they're very well used. But so it's basically a bench with a shelter.
Yeah,
like a bus stop.
George.
George.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No plans for anything like that. I mean, there are a couple of. Yeah, it might not be a bad idea. I mean, there's. Well, I suppose we just got the one bird height below Shillingston.
Yeah.
Where it overlooks the river. We've got that bit
but
there.
Nothing between
Shillingston, but nothing anywhere else. Right, no. Just trees.
Oh, we have the North Dorset Trailway. We have the Castleman Trailway. We have the railway line from Mount Newton towards West Bay. There's at least one over on the eastern side of the county that we forgot what we did. But these have all initially at least been driven by volunteer groups as much as by the council. And they all have niggles, and they all have ambitions to extend, particularly North Dorset Trailway. They've been talking about extensions for very many years and don't think we get anywhere. But what I was going to suggest is if we could, at a future meeting, have an agenda item that looked at these as a group, and so gave us up as a status report on them and what hope there was realistically of improving them.
Okay.
I mean, I can give you a brief update about the North Dorset Trailway with that kind of being my baby, if you like now. We've essentially, all the easy bits have been done. All the bits that were either council owned or the landowners were amenable to it. And what we've got now are the more dogged farmers who don't want anybody on their land. Lots of them don't have rights of way on them. Lots of them have been, lots of the sections have been completely ploughed out. So it's going to need a kind of complete refurbishment and almost crossing their palms with silver to be able to allow public access along them. So obviously the council is not that keen on compulsory purchase.
And there was also, from memory, a conflict between the ambitions of the North Dorset Railway Trust and the North Dorset Railway Trust.
Indeed.
At Shillingstone.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard anything on that for 2 or 3 years now, but you know, that was an issue.
Yeah, that it is still an issue for their long-term ambitions, but I think they have finally realised that although they might advertise on their website that they're going to go all the way to Stemmis Newton and all the way to Blackheath beyond, that is just not actually going to happen. We've been working very closely with them to reroute the trailway at Shillingstone so that they can at least have about a mile's worth of track, and a new lease for them is imminent, so that they can achieve that. And as far as extending the actual trailway goes, we've been successful in getting a fair bit of Section 106 money from housing developments to be able to pay for improvement works, to do deals with landowners, as it were, and pay for stone and whatever to be put down. But obviously that's quite slow in coming through as the housing development's built. But yeah, so we're getting there slowly, but it's just convincing the landowners to give it up is our main problem.
So would there be a section in your right-of-way improvement plan that would address these
Trailways,
that an
absolutely.
alternative way of getting a handle on it?
Yeah, it's going to be in there 100%. Yeah, and certainly it is in the Dorset plan as well. You know, which way. I was speaking to Ben Warbridge, who's their senior ranger over in the east recently about the Castleman Railway, and they have just negotiated a new link for the Castleman Railway through Burndown golf course as well. So that's going to add a good link through there. So we'll be able to provide more details on that kind of things. So, but yeah, happy to have it on the agenda. It's always a good topic to discuss.
Finally, active travel government funding. I think at this point, I saw the article in the Bournemouth Echo, I think it was, where the 102 million has been spent up and the 6 cycling corridor routes have effectively stopped and the Stour Valley Trail won't be going in. I don't know who wants to sort of add to that. I don't know if Elias has anything further, but really it's Wayne Sayers'
I sorry, Andy. Yeah, well, I'm only going to say that I don't really know too much about the actual budgeting of everything which has gone on. I mean, I know that certainly we're involved in the early stages, and all I know is that we are really hoping to get that nice bridge over the Stour. I think that was exactly what we're aiming to get. Last I heard of it, they were sort of discussing with me the prospect of sort of, as you alluded to earlier, the idea of sharing the routes and getting it ready perhaps for equestrian users across the bridge. And I made my recommendations, so I wanted to see that. But that's the last I really heard of it. A lot of the work has been done sort of externally, isn't it? I don't know what Andy might know about sort of where the whole project is, but they don't keep me in the loop about the finality of it all.
Certainly the next stages are due for construction soon. There's a couple of corridors that are still to be constructed. Yeah. So, but I don't know the fine detail. Beth Barkerstock from our sustainable travel team would be the best person to answer that. She's similar sort of post to Wayne Sayers.
Okay, I know that there's an equestrian centre right next to the Stour route, and I know that equestrians are going to use that bridge come what may. So there's been political impetus there for well over a decade, 15 years. So, and if it does happen, it will get multi-use. But the funding issue, who knows? Okay.
I make just a very brief
Yes,
update on the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Sent off an email to member of staff who I saw was in, and Chris Peck and Charlotte Sullivan, who are 2 members of Dorset Council staff, are working on it. So they'll be best placed to advise on its current state of development. So we'll get an answer to you. But yeah, there is one under development.
Right.
So it seems.
And I believe we, as a forum, wished it to be multi-use as well. So that's sort of carried back to them.
What I would find helpful, also from those sources, is to understand how it fits in with the other plans. You are required to produce a local transport plan, which is effectively owned by the Department for Transport. You are required to produce a right-of-way improvement plan, which is effectively owned by the airport. I'm hazy as to how this one fits in the middle, if you will. If as well as telling us how far you got, you could actually clarify how it fits, who owns it. That would be helpful for me anyway.
Would the officers like to comment on any possible improvements in the Chiddock, Bridport and Bradpole areas?
I can.
I would welcome any comment.
Chiddock, Bridport, Bradpole. So we got a Bradpole, that was relatively straightforward. So we've had the cycling route through Bradpole for a while. We've just created a new link between Bradpole and Bridport. Well, it came as an aspiration from local down there, but so we have access to school, to the shops, access where we could get best access was across the mud bar. We now surface that, as we've said before, with the same type of surfacing with the Chiddock one. I've been in liaison for a while now with an interested group, and we've managed to acquire rights over a piece of land in a new bridleway. This will go from Chiddock to Quor Lane, so that will be brand new link to take people off of the A35. I'm in discussion with National Highways for their contribution towards it, because we are taking people off of their network. So that's a huge benefit and boost to the local area. The user group actually has very big aspirations. They want to be from Bridport to one region as a new route in its entirety. So the first stage of this was to actually link Chiddock to Slimmonsbury and Bridport. So that's still a lot of work to do, early days. So there's going to be a new right away. Implemented. Chiddock, Bridport. So no, Highways England are crossing. They are well aware of their severance issues.
Will you be putting out some more comms about this?
Yep, the paperwork for the new bridleway, for instance, once that's in and properly sorted out, and actually, its bridleway number given out, we are going to landowner, and also we have been in liaison with Bridport, National Highways, transport planners for the severance issues, and they came to us with a few things. We sent them back with actually there's another meeting regarding that. We want this. I think 7.2 report that will be put out as well. And the latest one actually regarding severance in the Bridport area is related to Verse Farm, and the new roundabout is going in. As well.
All interested parties, cyclists, pedestrians.
That's what we want. what we need. That's what we. Yeah, on that severance thing, that the original plans from the developer was no crossing point. They're building 760 houses, putting a roundabout in with a direct link footpath to E was no means of crossing that highway. So we've sent them back to the draw. This is a serious severance issue.
Yeah.
So again, we have nothing to report on that at the moment. We sent that back to them as well. So
if they're looking at a Toucan crossing, make sure they've got a high level buffer.
of course, I mean,
That's.
yeah. So that brief update for those things. So lots of work going on there.
What's the definition of cyclists when you're considering those? I think where you mean children's cycles.
Yeah.
And what's the full spectrum?
The routes we intend to have is everyone from adults on mountain and racing bikes or road bikes, right the way down to children with stabilisers.
Okay.
That's the level of plan we want. We want everybody to be able to use them. And generally, the surface that we've mentioned previously, it does do that, especially when it's got a pipe to dust capping over it, which gives a semi-sealed surface that's bedded well and lasts a long time. Because I mean, a lot of the surfacing we're doing at the moment, we have to be climate resilient and think ahead about as well. So the surface seems to do the job because our rain seems to come. A day's rain comes in an hour now, doesn't it? Rather than so we need to be saying our resilience to our network is what we're working on moving forward. So.
Right. Thank you for that. So on to item 7, which is the England Coast Path progress report.
That'd be me again.
You again.
Well, what can we put? So I can report that there's nothing to report.
Okay.
Basically, it is now. The only report was it was pushed back from the Secretary of State a while ago. They had to do a new ecological report summary, submit some more paperwork. I last spoke to, it was back in June. I last spoke to Natural England. They submitted everything they had to submit, and they were just waiting on the decision. Granted, we've been told we've been waiting for a decision since 2016, but the genuine feeling is we are on the cusp now. So all of the paperwork has been done and the questions answered. So that is where we are. We've had, I mean, further to the England Coast Path, we have, we're still waiting to open a couple of sections that we've done work on. We need for approval from Natural England. That line we saw on the map earlier, can't move that until Natural England give us approval to move it, even though it's a surface route being used by people currently. That's in the run rail line we got in Dorset. And we've had a couple of instances recently with ending the alignment of the path slightly, and the one that I hinted, well, we spoke about Ferry Bridge earlier. That one is that will be a permanent version because we're back to the caravan parks boundary now, and part of the caravan parks are exempt from accepted land. This means when it comes even to the ECP rollback. So we're putting in the plans now to, although we are working with them to try and hopefully come to the park as well. So that's where we are with Coast Path. Yeah, wider from my stretch, we got another closure on Portland. There could be there's a geological concern up on top of Portland at the moment. So we've rerouted the Coast Path there. So as always is, the Coast Path's a bit keep having to amend and whatever else. So yeah, Devon is exactly the same. So we've worked with colleagues in Devon as well, talking about their sections. So it's as much as the up-to-date information can be, will be available via the South West Coast Path Association and on our pages. And we also are due the rebrand soon. So as I hinted at earlier, we are keeping the South West Coast Path brand. So it will be the South West Coast Path, part of King Charles, the England Coast Path. Again, what a mouthful. But that is actually good because it is our unique signature. We are proud of the West Coast Path. So yeah, so we will rebrand it as soon as they allow us, or more to the point, when the current infrastructure plan, we're not going to proactively go out and remove all of the signage that's based out there while it's still good, we will do it as and when it fails.
Right, thank you, Russ, on that one. Which brings us on to item 8, which is the DLAF work programme. We have picked up on a few things earlier, particularly the opportunity to have a few sort of meetings elsewhere, especially at was it Upton Park.
Upton, possibly, yes, there's BCP in the BCP area, Upton Country Park, potentially. So I shall explore that. We'll explore that option.
That would be
for a
good.
future meeting.
And also meet with the adjoining forum in, I think somebody's at the door trying to get in the Devon decaf. So that's something I'll explore. And anything else you wish to pick up on those minutes as we go through, Gemma? Which brings us to item number 9. Janet, you produced a paper that's been circulated.
Well,
I just sort of talk to
yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to add to it. I go along to the AOB Partnership Board meetings, which 2 or 3 times a year. And I just extracted from the notes of the May meeting things to do with access, which I circulated to everybody in advance of today. Yeah, the AOMB is doing some really active things on improving public access. And you can see them all there. And fortunately, the way that it was presented in the notes of the meeting, there were links to the presentations that we have. So that was really why I circulated it in advance, was so that I could put the links in, and if anybody was sufficiently interested, you could look at what they were doing. So a particular interest possibly is the last one, which was the DEFRA access projects, where the AOB has got money from DEFRA for some improvement works, particularly out towards Bridport and West Bay, to improve accessibility. I dare say they put it all into council officers to see.
We were both a party to some meetings with the North Dorchester Garden community, and they seem to have stopped. I don't know if there's been any further action on that personally.
I believe it all comes down to the question of the local plan for Dorset, or at least the Dorchester area, which keeps being kicked back into touch. And in the case of North Dorchester Village, that, which I personally think is a splendid idea, but nevertheless, it was attracting huge numbers of objections when the draft plan was published. And I think it's a political football, but it's bouncing around, from what I understand. And the council keeps trying to persuade the government to let them put back the finish date of the plan, so that the awkward decisions about where do we put all these houses can be done.
Okay,
That's my reading, anyway.
I understand where you're coming from. Okay.
The matter there about nitrates and phosphates, etc., is not one went on at any great length. Obviously, the political situation isn't really aware of many houses, Southern England, etc., and summer and levelling up and regeneration bill will be back in September, and perhaps things will
Or not. Right, then item number 10, brief Dorset Council planning for climate change. applications, it's headed.
Yeah, that was me again.
That was you, John.
Yeah, I mean, I consulted with LAF members about whether we should respond to it, and if so, what we should say. The consensus was there were a few questions within the consultation that were within our remit. So I've got some feedback from various members, in particular from Nikki, and put those responses into, well, basically to just 2 questions, but thank you for everyone who did respond. And what I put in is in the what Gemma has circulated as agenda item 10. So nothing to add to that, really.
We note. Yeah, okay. And thank you very much for drawing that up, Janet. Final, you're coming.
Could we just look back to 8 for a minute? I was just glancing through the minutes of our last meeting, which defined about a dozen action points, of which I think we probably accidentally touched on about half of them today. But equally, I'm sure there are another dozen or more actions from our earlier minutes still hanging fire. And there's no real point in setting these actions if we don't follow them through. And I did try looking through Gemma's list, but unfortunately, when I tried printing it out, it was going to take, I think, either 8 or 12 pages to print it out. So I think I'm saying, please, can we have a concise listing of outstanding actions so we don't lose them?
Understood. That's if you could, are you able to do a consolidated list, Gemma?
It will have to be on one, which is a bit harder.
Okay. Right, we're sort of way out post meeting, but yes, Paul. Okay. Just quickly, any other business that we want?
2 very, very small points. Firstly, I'm on a small group of councillors, Dorset councillors, who are looking at the whole question of meeting times 2024 onwards. So if you have any particular views on meeting times, or I'm being facetious, any desire to meet at weekends or whenever, do let me have your thoughts. The second thing, which may seem a little bit strange, this is the only meeting that I attend in this building in which I have an agenda, but at the top of the agenda, it doesn't actually set out who is expected to attend. I don't know if that could be looked into. Because I'm conscious that anybody who actually looks at the agenda, members of the public, they would, in normal circumstances where you have any meeting of Dorset Council, whether it's full council, planning, cabinet, whatever it is, audit and governance, it would actually set out the people who are expected to be at the meeting. I don't know if that could be looked into. I know it's a small point. But, that's an important one.
Secretary of State's guidance makes it very clear we are not a council committee.
I think it would be useful.
And we
I think it would be useful if
required to set our own agenda, not have the council set
I
it
think
for
it would be very useful if the readers could actually see who invitations have been sent.
The website.
But I'm just looking at the basic agenda. I missed a point.
I just wanted to say on the web.
Yeah, we'll talk after the meeting about it. Thank you.
Okay. Right. The date of the next meeting we have is Thursday, the 23rd of November. Now, 19 minutes past 12. The meeting closed. And thank you very much for your attention.